Whatever happened to you in the past was not your fault. If you choose to continue to hold on to it, that's your fucking fault. Welcome to another episode of the Real Mentors Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Sean Martin. But today, we're gonna do things just a little differently. I'm actually gonna be a guest on my show, and I'm honored and privileged to work with my colleague and friend, Dan Sachkowsky, who's actually gonna interview me in the hopes that you get to know me just a little bit better today.
Excited for this. So I just want to ask you some questions and, so your audience can really get to know who you are, because I think it's super important when people really know who Sean Martin is and they can identify with you and they can understand where you come from. It creates a better dynamic of audience, number one, and number two, the real feeling of, hey, you're somebody who's real. You're not just talking about other people, asking other people questions, and they get to know the real heart of you, the real backstory of you, and understand what you're doing in this world and what your mission is. So, Sean, I want to ask you some questions. Sean, you grew up in the Parkside Projects during the 80s Bronx crack epidemic. You were raised by a single Dominican mom who never made more than $50,000 a year. Fast forward today, you're running a multi-million-dollar company. You built an 8-figure real estate portfolio. For the entrepreneur that's listening right now, who feels like maybe their background is working against them, no connections, no capital, wrong zip code, what's the one advantage you had coming from the bottom that people born with privilege never develop?
Just like working out, brother, you've got to break things down to build them back stronger. And when you come from humble beginnings, when you come from poverty, when you come from ugly situations like so many of us do as children, what you're doing is actually building the muscle that can later help you take on all of the challenges that you're definitely going to face in life. It's inevitable. So like when I speak to kids, I always tell them they're working out of a hole. But once they climb to where they can get their head out of that hole and see forward, they're gonna have so much advantage over their peers who haven't understood or overcome any struggles. So my life wasn't all struggle, but it was definitely a challenge to get out of that environment. And I think so many people have pain, but instead of using it and shifting the perspective to make it fuel, they use it as glue, and they end up getting stuck because they focus on all the things that happened to them in the past and not focus on the things that they can do in the future.
At 29 years old, you were already making 6 figures. You made the decision to turn yourself in and serve a 2-year prison sentence for attempted robbery. Most people see that as a career suicide, and you said it was the best thing that had ever happened to you. Walk us through that. What exactly did you do during those 2 years? Setting the foundation for everything that you've built since then.
So in my darkest, deepest time, right when I was going to prison, I was dealing with that ordeal, I was fighting the case, I was already telling myself, this is gonna be the best thing that ever happened to me. And that was a fucking bold-faced lie. The truth is, an entrepreneurial situation or someone looking to get started, you're creating something from nothing, from an idea. So I had all these ideas as a kid and as a young man, but the trappings of chasing money and feeling good and going to clubs and drugs and alcohol and all the things that come with being young and ambitious, they were skewed by the upbringing I had coming up in the projects in the Bronx, where my role models were not necessarily good people, drug dealers, hustlers from the neighborhood, but it's all I had to draw from. So going to prison, for the first time in my life, I was at peace. I literally found the peace I had never had in prison, and I got to know who Sean was.
Wow.
But that fucking silence, that sitting with my thoughts for 2 years, and then picking up first Awaken the Giant Within with Tony Robbins, but then even more so just diving into Stephen Covey, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie, Think and Grow Rich. I mean, all the classics. And the blessing in disguise was I was so far in that hole that I had nothing to lose. And that freedom actually allowed my mind to go to places it had never gone to, because reality wasn't an issue. I was sitting in a prison cell. It was all bullshit. Whatever I wrote in that paper and I believed I could achieve, it was just a thought, it was a belief, and just that. But for some reason, without the distractions, without the people saying you can't do something, without the limiting beliefs of others seeping into your brain and your life and your actions that being taken, I was able to just say fuck it and dream these wild, amazing dreams, which I am very thrilled to say most of them have come through. So it just goes to show you that it may not happen tomorrow, it may not happen next year, but fucking 17 years later, that dream came to fruition. And it didn't come to fruition because I went and put in the legwork. It came to fruition because I started to put in the legwork and the work toward becoming the person that I dreamt of being in the cell.
You work with entrepreneurs stuck at 500, 700,000, sometimes even, $1 or $2 million a year, where they've been there for years or even decades. They're working 60, 70 hours a week. They're stressed out. Their marriages are suffering, their lives are suffering, and they should be, $5 to $10 million companies, or, at least their revenue should be grown over the years, but they just can't break through. From building multiple 7 and 8 figure businesses yourself, what are the top 3 invisible ceilings that keep them stuck, and why are they not seeing it?
I'll use an example. I had a guest early on my podcast, a good friend of mine, and they asked me, he's like, what's the difference between, a 7-figure entrepreneur and an 8-figure entrepreneur? And I simply said mindset. And it gets used and overused so much. The number one thing is mindset. And mindset encompasses a lot of things. So let's just check off number 1, belief. Because if you don't believe you can do something, no matter how wild it is, you stand absolutely no chance. The second is to actually create a vision of what that person looks like, that future you, so you can chase it. And then the third thing is your relationship capital, your network. Who are you around? Who are the people that you're leaning on when shit gets tough? And I think that's some of the things that most people do in the beginning to sabotage themselves unknowingly. It's to look to the people that you love in your circles that have no business explaining to you how to run a business. But some reason we always go to them first because they're the closest to us. So that's the importance of proximity.
Next question I have for you is 2.5 years ago, after more than 20 years of high functional alcoholism, you made a choice to get sober, and you said your business and your life accelerated exponentially after that. Get specific for us on what changed in your thinking, your habits, and your execution after sobriety, and what had been impossible before.
Clarity. The one thing that I can say to anybody out there who internally, whether or not they will admit it to anybody else, knows that they have a problem drinking or using any kind of substance, whatever it may be, you will gain clarity like you've never had before once you find the courage to first admit that you do have a problem, and then 2, to seek out help, and then 3, to continue to educate yourself and seek out help despite the fact that you think you've conquered that thing. But then a lot of us use to forget. We use to numb ourselves. We use to put things off. If I have this drink now, I'm not gonna stress what's going on tomorrow because it's gonna take the edge off. But then taking the edge off becomes, I'm just gonna keep going. And that was me, brother. I wasn't reaching for purpose. I wasn't reaching to help others. I was all about helping myself, building the bank account, and having fun with the money that I was earning. But it just left me empty.
What do you tell that person that says, I'm addicted, I want to stop, but I just can't?
You got to change that narrative. You got to change that story. And I'll share something that makes people uncomfortable. I went to AA after getting sober, and on my 6th month, that was the last time I ever went. I walked up to the front of the room, they gave me the coin. I walked back, everybody's bro hugging, high-fiving, you're halfway there, Sean. I get back to the chair at the back of the class where I always sit since I was a kid. And they're like, Sean, oh yeah, my name is Sean and I'm an alcoholic. That was God tapping me on the shoulder. What I had realized in my 6 months in AA and all the other post-recovery things that I was doing was the identity. Everything they do in those rooms is built around, I'm an alcoholic, so, well, the reason we do this is because we're alcoholics. Well, we can't be trusted because we're alcoholics. You're literally identifying as the thing you're trying to escape. So how the fuck can you escape it? And again, this is gonna rub some people the wrong way. I don't give a fuck. If AA works for you, God bless. It's helped more people than I could ever hope to in this world. Because if you keep holding on to the identity of being an alcoholic or an addict or someone in recovery, again, there's a higher likelihood that you'll slip back into it.
Yeah.
Bro, I've got alcohol in my house right now. I've had alcohol in my house for years. I have absolutely no interest. I'm not a drinker anymore. It's that fucking simple. And I chose to change my identity around that. And anybody listening has the power to change their identity around anything in their life. But you have to want it, and you've got to identify as it. And you've got to believe it.
Love it. Another question for you. 17 years ago, you're sitting in a prison cell. You were writing in those notebooks. You were wanting to meet Tony Robbins, reading Awakening the Giant. It was changing your life, right? So you changed, and you saw that, recently you had a personal conversation with him at an exclusive mastermind. So how did it feel being able to read his book, have him be an identifier to changing your life, and now spending time with him personally?
There go those goosebumps again, bro. Yeah, I'm an emotional person. For anybody who's getting to know me, I call it how I see it. Now, facts are only facts. Interpretations are more important. The reality is when I met Tony, and the reason I got goosebumps is I'm waiting online. I meet him in Maui. It's the last event at this Platinum Mastermind year that I did. And as it's my turn, I go up. I'm vibrating, bro. And I go up to Tony. I'm like, hey, how you doing, Tony? In my fucking big New York voice. And he's like, I'd ask you, but I can feel you. Fucking Tony Robbins felt what I was feeling. And I didn't learn till later about heart vibrations, but everything changed in that moment. And that was the validation that I needed from a father figure I never had, that I was on the right path. Because everything leading up to that moment told me that I was indeed a king. I was indeed ready for this journey. I was a king of a small kingdom ready to expand, but nonetheless, I had been through the tunnel and come out the other side ready for war. And I was with the GOAT. I mean, what better validation can you get than from the GOAT of personal development? So
yeah, I was going to ask you, what was the real return on investment that, simply can't get access anywhere else from that?
Priceless. I was ready to get a divorce before I went into Platinum Partnership. I was struggling with myself. I had just gotten sober. My son was less than 6 months old. I mean, I was lost, brother. And I was always looking for something. So I walk into this event and there's fucking 12,000 people jumping up and down like a concert for being a better person. I was like, what is this? This is like a cult, but a good cult. I want more of this. And I got to tell you, everybody's first question is, what's the ROI? I'm not a practical person in that regard. I'm not trying to measure what I spend versus what I can get back, because this for me was something totally different. It was an exploration of who Sean was and what I could become. It's absolutely priceless. And even you've asked me, it's a lot of money. And because I've become a better person who already knows how to make money, now I can go out there and make all the money in the world, but not lose myself like I did the last time I made money.
So you just said you went in there and you saw it was like a cult. So when you think about cult, let's take the first couple letters of culture, right? So it's created this culture. You were lost. You walked into this world of this new culture, which has now brought you into this place where you didn't know that it existed. You read it in a book, you see it in real life, and it activated something inside of you. So having that culture in your life is so important. So being able to be a part of that and being connected to all these, high-level people, I just want the audience to understand that, we never know what the future holds. But if we hold on to the past, we can never, ever be a part of our future. So if you were to look back at yourself 17 years ago when you walked into prison before you opened up your first book, and someone would have said, hey, in 17 years from today, after you walk out of here, 15 years later, you know what you're going to do? You're going to experience some of the wealthiest people that you've ever met, and you're going to change your life. Would you ever have thought that was possible?
I guess there was a chance of it happening, right? Like, what was it, a Dumb and Dumber? So you're saying there's a chance? I had dreams, brother, but they were just dreams. They were just dreams like so many of us have, but I had no fucking clue how I would ever get there. Prison created a lot of things in my life. I also met my now wife a year before. It was like a fucking blessing in disguise. I say God gave me a timeout because I have the power to change a lot of lives. So no, before prison, I could not have seen that. Before prison, I was hanging out with hustlers. I was hanging out in the wrong places with the wrong people doing the wrong things, and it caught up with me. But, let it be known too, I'm a college educated man. I always worked for a living, but I hustled on top of that because the job never paid enough and I wanted more. but I went about it the wrong way. And I wouldn't say I'm remorseful. I regret what I did, but again, it's shifting the identity and the perspective. So the same way you can shift your identity, you can shift your perspective around what happened to you in the past. So whatever happened to you in the past was not your fault. If you choose to continue to hold on to it, that's your fucking fault. And for anybody out there who's still crying about depression or crying about what the parents did to them or that they went through this trauma or had it worse than you, nobody gives a fuck but you.
True.
And you gotta let that shit go. So a lot of success is not addition, it's subtraction.
Yeah,
it's about letting go of the things you're holding on to that are holding you back.
Absolutely. Another question for you. Getting from like $100,000 to $1 million, that's one game in business. But getting from 1 million to 10 million, that's a completely different game. Walk us through that transition. What has to die for that next level to happen in your life? And what has to be born?
The idea that you can do it on your own has to die completely. You will never succeed at the highest levels on your own. You will never get to 1 million from 100,000 on your own. You will never get from 10 million to 10 million from 1 million on your own. You need the right teams. You need the right people. You need the right facilitators. And I didn't have any of that shit making my first 100 grand. I didn't need it. You can manage 100 grand. You can manage a few 100 grand by yourself. But when you get into the millions, you need collaboration. You need partners and you need seasoned veterans. So you pay for speed. So my real estate success is only successful because I latched onto someone who's already successful and made myself so valuable to them that they were willing to bring me along for the ride. So I skipped all the mistakes. I skipped all the pain. Are there gonna be mistakes and things that we're gonna learn in the future? Absolutely, but are they gonna be as painful? No, because I have the right people guiding me through the process. 10X is easier than 2X simply means, and it's a great book. If you haven't picked it up, other than Beyond the Bronx, I'm promoting that one and a couple others. The reason that 10X is easier than 2X is because 2X gives you the false sense that you can continue to just do more of what you're doing to get more. 10X is so far ahead, you can't apply the same techniques to get to that place. You have to scrap that playbook and get next to the next person who has the blueprint, who has the right playbook that can get you to the Super Bowl or to that 10 million or a million, whatever your number is. But if it's 10 times what you're doing, you need a new playbook. There's no way you can keep doing the same shit and get those results.
That's exactly right. What does the entrepreneur need to let go of, and who do they need to become?
Who they need to become, I'll start with that. It's totally up to them. But what they need to let go of are the old stories, and you mentioned the patterns. Pattern recognition is one of the most important things that we can educate ourselves around. It's more important than anything school will ever teach you. And the reason being is we are running a program that is in a loop. It was downloaded onto us by our parents and our caretakers in childhood from the ages of 0 to 7. My daughter's 8 for a reference point. I can change a lot of things in my daughter's life, but most of her code is written already. And I get emotional because, for the first 5 years of her life, I was drinking. And I can't ever change that. But I sure as hell have changed since. And I'm gonna do everything I can to continue to shift that perspective, that narrative, that story. Because again, that shit happened. I can't change that. I can change the future. So I'm showing up as the best person that I can now. And I think all of us need to let go of the person that we were to become that person that we're dreaming of being. There's so many things inside of you that you're unaware of. Programs that you're running, scripts that you're fucking completely unaware of, code that you don't know is in your system. I use the weight loss example. I'm someone who struggled with weight all my life. And I would lose massive amounts of weight only to gain back as much and more in a short period of time. Because I still identified as the fat kid I was when I was a kid, from the ages of 0 to 7. And then, through my teenage years and then through my 20s, I was identifying as a fat kid and I always reached to food for comfort. Get sober, son is born. I now have a new example of who I want to be. I want to be a fit dad in my 50s and 60s, still able to keep up with my young kids, throw the ball around the yard, go to softball, basketball practice, keep up with my daughter who's going to be in her teenage years when I'm in my 50s. So let go of the old you and hold on to newer, higher standards for this vision of yourself that you have for the future.
You're definitely doing it, bro. And your fit journey is speaking for itself. Your chest got its own zip code.
I know, right? First thing everybody says. That's all right. I used to have titties, so I'm happy with these.
So your book, Beyond the Bronx, From Prison to Purpose, launched last December. Through Real Mentors, your mission is to impact 10 million inner city youth. And that cycle that you want to break, that's something that you really want to break at like a massive scale. So why is the mission so important to you, number one? And what are you teaching these kids and the entrepreneurs you coach that school and that traditional business will never teach them? What's something that you're going to be able to deliver them that they'll never learn outside of it?
Well, the first thing we talked about was mindset. And I think that applies to everybody. Excuse me, both young and old. So when I speak to these kids, it's a different conversation than when I speak to these entrepreneurs, but the principles are the same. So when I set that goal, ironically enough, we were talking about 10X, to impact the lives of 10 million inner city youth, my first number was 1 million. And then I just had a conversation with somebody, we were bouncing it off each other, and I said, you know what, fuck it, 10 million, it's not real anyway. And if you can get to 1 million, you can get to 10. You can probably get to 100.
Right.
The reality is the number just seems so far away. But I wrote that the secret to having a full life, for me, would be giving back and educating kids to not make the mistakes that I did. And I think that's important specifically for inner city youth. That's what's close to my heart. People of color, black and brown, like I grew up, because systematically, we just live in tougher circumstances here in the United States and around the world. And that's something that's close to my heart. And I think education got me out of that, number one. Love got me out of that from my mother as well. And I think there's just not enough of those two components amongst poor people. And so I've been fortunate to turn my life around, to write this crazy story where you go to jail, you turn around, you live this fucking life of your dreams, and you're just getting started at 47. I'd be a fucking selfish prick to not come out here and share as much of this as I can. And what gave me the courage to do it was the clarity around getting sober and the voice that's always been inside of my head, even back in those prisons, in that prison cell 17 years ago, which was to give as much as I can to others. I'm a kid from the projects. I grew up in poverty. Well, you know, working class poverty. I don't want to say poverty because I grew up around generational welfare recipients and people that were just down and out. And my mom always got up and went to work. We never, you know, I always say we made enough, but we didn't make enough to get out because we just didn't have two incomes. And I think so many people suffer from same situations as I did. And just like me, they didn't have a male role model to look up to lean on, to say, yo, I could be like that dude. So I want to be that guy for them. And I want to bring guys like you and other people that I get to meet and I'm honored to share space and conversations with, to come in and also add their value and their knowledge and their education to these young kids' lives, because that's far more valuable than anything they're going to learn in a textbook.
Love that. If someone is listening right now, stuck at their revenue ceiling, knowing that they're capable of more but unsure how to break through, what's one thing you want them to do today, and what's the very first step?
The first step is admitting, just like in recovery, that you don't have the answers. You are not capable of doing this on your own. You need a mentor. You need someone to guide you. And I don't give a shit how established or how good you are. Michael Jordan had a coach. LeBron James had a coach. Even fucking Tony Robbins had a coach in certain areas of his life. Because what you're doing when you have a mentor is you're eliminating the mistakes that they made by getting next to them. So entrepreneurs need to understand, no matter how talented they are, no matter how hard they work, there is shit that they cannot navigate on their own. And then furthermore, how many entrepreneurs chase success at the expense of something else? The whole balance thing is a very hot topic on social, right? There's no balance. You're right, there's no balance. So think of a scale, right? Oh, my business needs me more, so I'm gonna go in and lend more of myself to the business, but my family's gonna see less of me. Or I may not make the gym because I'm building this dream. But maybe next week, there's a crisis. My family needs me. We're on vacation and I made a commitment to be present. Now family takes the priority. So things are never gonna be in this perfect balance, especially if you're hard charging. So you've gotta be able to flow, and you've gotta be able to integrate the most important things in your life around that. So for entrepreneurs, I really try to integrate impact into the mission so that it makes it more purposeful for them, because they can chase money, success, and numbers all day long. If they don't have something like a Real Mentors program or a ridiculous goal of trying to impact 10 million inner city youth, see, I'm still gonna make money, but I'm gonna do it with the intention to help more people. There's no better motivation than that.
Yeah.
Not for me, at least.
And getting your family in line and being able to do your business, like you said, around your family, because most people get involved in business, they say for a better life for their family, but their family gets the scrap. They get what's left. They get the attitude. They get the tired. They get the I got to go to sleep. They get the don't bother me because I don't feel like talking right now. So many people who are entrepreneurs often do it for the wrong reasons, because they feel like the harder they work, the better they'll be, but they're losing everything that they're really building it for.
Yeah, that's just the journey, brother. We can't go back. Only time you should be looking in the rearview mirror is to see how far you've come, not to see how you fucked up. You can't undo that. What you can do is show up better tomorrow. So how many people have to lose something before they realize how important it was? I try to keep my clients from ever experiencing that. Otherwise, there's gonna be some semblance of fucking self-sabotage. We've all done it because we don't believe internally that we are worthy of who we are dreaming to be. I mean, we see mismanagement among all of our athletes, and that is the wildest, most extreme example. You go from a kid who most likely grew up somewhat humble or, working class or even poverty, and then you get this fucking 8-figure contract. You did nothing in between to get yourself ready for the money. Yes, you're an amazing athlete, you're a stud athlete, you're all these things in that space. But in the world of money, you have no fucking clue. You're just walking onto the field for the first time and you're getting fucking run over. Not by the money, but by everything and all the responsibility that comes with it. And entrepreneurship is no different. You are not gonna have that explosive year until you are ready to handle that explosive year and everything that comes with it. But unfortunately, most of us will have that explosive year and fucking piss it away, fuck it up, or self-sabotage because we haven't developed into the person that is worthy of carrying that weight yet. We haven't rise to the occasion of being the leader that can manage that stress and fucking keep bringing the troops forward and keep motivating them and keep driving them to the promised land. And I'll leave it with this. As a leader, as an entrepreneur, your dreams have to be big enough to fit everyone who's relying on you's dreams inside of it. And I learned that from one of my mentors, Dan Martell. And I think it was the most beautiful explanation for dreaming big, because if you look at it from that perspective, Gio, who's shooting, might have some dreams. You might have some dreams, and I know you got big fucking dreams, so I'm not gonna use you as this example, but if you were working for me, I need to make sure that your dreams of making $100,000 a year and making your family secure are well smaller than mine, so that I could provide that for 10 or 20 or 50 or 2,000 people. There's people that have created businesses that employ tens of thousands of people. That person's dream was obviously big enough to house 10,000 other people's dreams within them. And that is powerful, but you have to build yourself to the person that can manage that type of life and that level of people and stress in order to get there, and that's what you and I both do, brother.
Awesome. Well, listen, man, it was a pleasure to be able to interview you, and I'm honored that you chose me to do so, and I think the audience got a real glimpse here of who Sean is, who Sean was, and where Sean's going. And I really know deep down that you're going to be an ultimate success, not only for yourself, but for those people that you touch, for your family, and for anyone who gets the opportunity and privilege to spend time with you in your lifetime. So I'm so honored to know you, to call you a friend, and to watch you along on this journey.
No, man, thank you. I appreciate you, brother. And the best is yet to come. We're just getting started. That's the exciting part. Thank you for tuning in to another unusual but fun episode of the Real Mentors podcast. Thank you to our host, Dan Sachkowsky, today. Make sure you follow Big D and make sure you follow us in the Money Mindset Movement. As always, let's get it.